In the last few years, we've seen worldwide protests at government inaction on climate change and mass extinctions. Activists of all ages, but particularly young people, are demanding that modern civilization fundamentally change its hitherto exploitative relation with the earth and find new ways of living that will not only conserve but regenerate our biosphere. It's well understood in these movements that such a transition will require not only that people pay attention to the climate and conservation sciences, but that they fundamentally rearrange their values and worldview. The old mechanistic materialist worldview that rested on classical science and formed the core of modern industrial consciousness needs to go. It has to be replaced with a new ecological worldview, a worldview defined in terms of relationships, not divisions. A worldview that understands reality in terms of life, not dead matter. In other words, it's well understood that the changes that are needed are at base philosophical, not merely economic or political or technological. This was evidenced by the fact that when the school climate strikes were at their height, in my hometown of Melbourne in Australia in 2019, before the pandemic hit, workshops on environmental philosophy were held every day in the activist camps. Central to the thinking of this new generation of activists are mantras such as, all things are connected, and humans are not separate from nature but are part of it, and everything is alive. Welcome as these mantras are, they do raise questions. When we drill down into them, what are they really saying? If everything is interconnected and nothing is really separate, am I really a distinct individual at all? And if I'm not a distinct individual, if my individuality is just an illusion, should I attend to my own needs? Should I try to maintain my existence? In other words, if I decide that my individual identity is an illusion, won't I just give up the effort it costs me to keep going, to survive? Or again, if everything is alive, does this mean there's no distinction between a body that is still breathing and one that has ceased breathing? And does it mean everything? Are broken bottles and bits of string as alive as, say, elephants and rainforests? And if so, if everything is alive, how can we have an environmental ethic, an ethic that directs us to respect and protect things differentially? So these mantras are in fact profoundly philosophical in nature. They touch deep questions of metaphysics, and their ethical ramifications are not necessarily self-evident. Environmental philosophers started to explore these questions more than 30 years ago. I was amongst those philosophers, and in the Ecological Self, I put forward a particular version of an ecological worldview. I argued that yes, there is ultimate unity, connectedness, and a kind of universal aliveness in the scheme of things, but there is also differentiation and distinction, and hence the possibility of a genuine, fully articulated environmental ethic. At the same time, however, I suggested that an environmental ethic might not be enough. Perhaps we need to figure out how we ought to be living not only on Earth, but in a cosmos that itself has a life and directive of its own.